Hello, and welcome back to Conversations with Claire. Today, my guest is For Pete. Jimmy House, you're officially the most frequent guest.
4-time.
For Pete. Maybe, just maybe, I'll remember to put you in my gratitudes at the end.
Probably not.
But we got a good hour to go, so there's no telling.
Probably not. We'll see.
Okay. By your prompting, I'm going to go ahead and just toss this out now. One, thank you for choosing to be here if you're listening. We're going to get into some really fun stuff today. And two, I'm going to plug it now. We both run online coaching businesses, and we're both really proud of them. And so we offer programming and meal plans. We offer a lot of different things online. And so those will be in the description below. But I'm just going to let you know now that if you are seeking support with what you're doing with your fitness or your nutrition or your mindset surrounding how you show up on those things, both of us care a lot about what we do in that space. Anything to add?
More specifically, Claire. So her coaching business.
Okay, he has a great one too.
On.
Whatever. Anyway. Okay, so if you are new here or you don't know Jimmy, real quickly, let's give you the goods on him. So he is currently a pro wrestler, but he's also a BJJ black belt and a power lifter and a bodybuilder, both at very high levels, especially the power lifter within the last year. He had an incredible performance 1 year ago at Nationals.
1 year ago, the American Pro.
That's what I meant. I'll never get it right. Anyway, the American Pro took a podium finish there.
Nicknamed the Super Bowl of powerlifting is what it's called.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think it's self-proclaimed, but whatever.
I still like it. And then you also run a very successful coaching business, both in person and online.
Thank you.
You're an actor.
Kind of.
You're really good at it. A content creator, whether you like it or not.
Christ.
And last but not least, certainly not least, he's a great boyfriend.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Who's the lucky girl?
Okay. What I do think is cool too, actually, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, who's the lucky guy?
Oh man, Matt.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So it was just over a year ago whenever we filmed so the intro for you, just over a year ago was the first time that we hung out together and did an Instagram live. Mm-hmm. And the whole scenario was just hilarious because I'm sure he was like, what on earth? And I didn't understand how much he had truly done. I knew he was an impressive athlete, but I had no idea what I was doing. And it's hilarious because it forever lives on the internet. It's there. And we can go back and watch it anytime we want. And would you say that my intro this time was a little bit more well-educated about who you are than last time?
Yeah, did you rewatch it to make sure you had everything down correctly?
No, but I did look at your Instagram bio. But I added my own stuff.
You did.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to start with your 4 months post-op.
Yep.
And so do you want to talk a little bit about that? I just want you to give an update on how that journey is going, because I think we're in a pretty exciting chapter of it finally.
Yeah, so I would say that the last month has been the most insurmountable amount of progress that I've made in the 4 months that I've had since the surgery. I think the last time that I was on, it was maybe the first couple weeks that I could actually start kind of limping around. I don't think I was in crutches or a wheelchair at that time, the last one we did.
I rolled in your wheelchair. I don't think you were permanently in the wheelchair.
I think it was just a part. I think it was just in the room. Yeah.
Well, you used it more, you don't like to burn extra calories, so you used it for a while. Anyway, no, I don't think you were wheelchair bound at that point.
Yeah. No. Yep. Anyways, so I think, at that time I just started walking. So now I'm at a point to where I've been walking for maybe 2.5 or so months. And I've also started incorporating some light running the last couple weeks. And that's translated into being able to teach wrestling classes once a week, being able to attend pro wrestling practice twice a week, being able to train my legs actually both evenly again, deadlifting, squatting, all these things that are generally a part of my normal day-to-day life, but of the last half year or so, especially with the 2 months leading into the surgery after the injury occurred, hasn't been so frequent. So I'm starting to feel a little bit more like myself, and then she probably would have touched on this anyways, but her and I have been going through our mold stuff, and I'm a little bit newer to the recovery process of that, since I found out about mine like almost half a year after you did, it seems like. But nonetheless, coming out of that as well. So, and a bit of a weight loss journey, knee recovery journey, mold recovery journey. But I'm a month and a half and 2 months out of some pretty big events, both in lifting and wrestling now at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And when he says the mold, it's, if you've been around, then you know, but there's a, I think it's episode 70 something that I went into detail about. I was living in a mold infested apartment for a year. And so just the healing from that. And I started to get symptoms a good solid 6 months before he started to get symptoms. And he didn't live there, but he was exposed to it enough that we wound up discovering that he actually had a lot of mycotoxins in his system as well. And some totally different, what's the word I'm looking for? Different symptoms than I had, but ultimately like stemming from that as well. And so yes, he is now having to work extra hard, not just the knee, but the respiratory and all that different stuff too.
Respiratory, hair loss. I still think I'm having issues with vision. I noticed that over the weekend. Holding a bunch of excess inflammation, like I was telling her. Now I'm in a decent spot. I'm looking a lot better, but I'm still holding a lot of inflammation right now as we speak. Like my body, there's certain veins and certain lines showing in my physique that insinuate that I might be leaner than what I actually weigh or what I'm actually showing. But the mold and the toxins and everything just cause such an inflammatory response within the body that at my worst, having a couple of cheat meals a week, say with her or with my friends, I got from 211 all the way up to 226 in probably like a month. And, generally speaking, I can put on weight quickly if I really, really go off the deep end, but I really wasn't, besides like 1 or 2 meals a week. And I had gained or just about 15 pounds out of nowhere. And that's when I knew something was off, that I was just gaining weight at a very rapid pace. My hair loss was coming at a rapid pace in regards to taking a shower and washing my hair for about 20 seconds and noticing there's about 30 or so strands of hair in each hand. That was a bit wild. I was growing out my hair a while back, and then when I started balding from the stress of the mold, then I decided just to cut it off and maybe restart at a later point, simply just because it was just starting to look very off and weird with the thinning hair. And genetically speaking, on my mom's side, I'm not supposed to be going bald, so it was all very confusing. And then I remember just sitting at the kitchen one night with her. I was like, I wonder if mold causes balding. So I looked it up, and it does. Not as a direct symptom, but as a byproduct of the stress. And then that's when we had the toxin test ordered. I took it, 5 different variants of mold. I think 3 of them were really heavy.
Heavy volumes.
Yeah, super heavy volume. So we've been both attacking our rehab, our recovery from that in very similar ways, actually.
Yeah. And it really does appear to be working really well for you, both in your body composition is responding. Mine is a little bit too, which is so encouraging.
Yeah, for sure.
There's still a lot of headway to be made, but very pleased with what's seeming to start to happen. Anyway, but the hair looks better.
Yeah, I did notice that it does look darker on the top of my scalp.
For sure.
Which is good.
Yeah. Because, I was watching it and I was like, maybe it goes. I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, well, I just think it's cool to point out, because so you got injured and it was 2 months until you had the surgery. And then now it's been 4 months afterwards, which is, you've been down for 6 months really.
Yeah.
And
basically,
but these past few weeks, and you did all the things that you were supposed to do in the early days of like for your specific repair of your meniscus, the type of surgery that you had. There's all of this patience that was required up front of like, can't do much, for quite some time, for months. Initially it was, you really couldn't do much. And then it's cool because you have so much experience, both with your own body and with all of the clients that you work with in rehabbing from injury, to where watching you progress at this point, it's so wild to watch. It was just like, this flat line almost for a while. And then it started to kind of pick up, and it wasn't linear. It had its dips and its peaks and its valleys along the way. But I feel like we're almost in this just outright hockey stick now for the past couple of weeks, where now, even if it's not, although your leg itself, the muscle belly is really doing some things. It's coming back so well. But you just deadlifted 500 pounds yesterday, which yet again, in the past couple of years, you've pulled 800 and in a different stance. But so
740 though.
In that stance.
765 in my best ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost got 800 in conventional like a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus, that's wild. I can't even contextualize. But so it's a bit off of where you've been, right? But it's still like a tremendous amount. And then this isn't your legs specifically, but you're setting all sorts of PRs. Like today, I know you set one, and Saturday you set one with your strict press, your standing strict press, dumbbells.
Yeah.
You did 95s for 6 reps of like true full range. It's kind of wild to watch. But anyway, so I'm just so stoked to see how well it's going, because 4 months, when you're in the slog of 4 months, feels like forever.
Yeah. Totally.
And really demoralizing.
Yeah.
But then you zoom out and it's like 4 months isn't actually that long. It's not a good time. And all of the other stuff you had going on only contributed to the not a good time. But really, that's like you have access to so much already.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you want to touch on what you have coming up? I was going to like bring it up later, but do you want to go ahead and touch on some of the stuff that you are?
I can't specifically touch on everything.
Okay.
But I can say that I have a couple wrestling events should be coming up in the next couple months. And then I'll be doing CT Fletcher's Iron Wars lifting event in Los Angeles, California in January. So that's one lifting event that I am doing. She should be there. And based on how 500 went yesterday, my goal for that one is to be able to deadlift at least 700 conventional, unless I do what I did last year where I said I was going to do conventional and then I just said, fuck it, I'm going to do sumo. but I do want to try conventional out for the event. I think it'd be pretty cool. And I always get really intense and hyped up whenever I lift a lot of weight conventional. I think with CT there and everything, it'll be a really cool kind of full circle moment from being able to come back from the surgery and then be able to still deadlift over 700 with actually, honestly, very minimal effort. I mean, I was telling her a lot of my progression for stuff like deadlift and squat is just a matter of like retouching and very, very low amounts each week and rebuild it up, because I had spent so many years in my teens and early 20s deadlifting ungodly amounts of weights and reps and sets and you name it multiple times a week, to where nowadays I have this general foundation and baseline of strength, which as long as I just implement a movement for X amount of time, even if it's super low volume, I can still bring it up to my general baseline, which for me historically the last few years has been about a 700 to 725 conventional deadlift and then a 780 to 800 sumo deadlift.
I think it speaks to that 10,000 hours rule,
Basically, yeah.
You've just done the reps, like watching him step up to the 500 yesterday, which is another 90 pounds greater than what you did the week prior and have done in
two
over.
Days prior. Remember I did it Friday.
2 days prior. Yeah, sick. Anyway. Yeah,
I don't suggest that, but we were at Alpha Land and I wanted to take advantage of the barbell that they had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I deadlifted 300 pounds.
Yes, you did.
But I also don't really practice deadlift.
At all, which is even more impressive.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to get 315. We just have to actually try. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you are the hardest worker that I know. And I do know a lot of hard workers. I don't just want to sit here and toot your horn, but literally when I think about, because I get such close proximity vision of all of it, and I see the hours that are spent doing the in-person coaching, working on the back end of the online coaching business, working on the creator side of things, working on being an actor, the amount of mentoring you do for me in business. There are so many, and I mean, I like just quickly touched on those, but I know that we could dive into each one. And I mean, the time and energy that they take up, there's just a lot. And you're so multifaceted and so talented with each one of them. One of the things I think that you've been helping me with that I think is very useful is thinking versus acting, And so with all of the external stuff that's going on all the time, I know that it's really easy for me to just get busy consuming, and what the first person I ever heard say it, Chris Williamson, likes to call mentally masturbating, of just like consuming all sorts of different things. Well, I'm doing it in the name of education. I'm educating myself about what it is that I'm trying to get done here or whatever. And the next thing you know, I've spent up a lot of energy consuming other people's ideas. And I haven't really sufficiently iterated on any of them to move the needle in my own life and my own business in a way that I need to. And so I think it's a really it's a balancing act, because I don't think all of that is for nothing at all. I plan to continue to consume different ideas, but like at a volume that allows me to then tap into my own energy. And you've done such a good job of like helping me see that. And so I guess my question is just like, what are your thoughts about that? And how do you seamlessly do that in your own life?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, so what I basically told her was, I think that there's a lot of people that it's trendy to, and this is like, I'm not insulting you or anyone else, but it's trendy to consume a lot of podcasts. It's trendy to look for the next book that's going to give you the answers. It's trendy to have a particular influencer per se to follow on Instagram or YouTube to be able to find the answers that you've been looking for and these various things. And those answers a lot of times, yes, are within these things. I think as much as you could argue somebody else consumes too much, I could also argue that I consume too little, to where there should be like maybe a happy median to where maybe I can expose myself to a little bit more learning. But the way I see it and the way I like to think about it personally is just, a lot of times we already know what the right answer is. And however many podcasts or YouTube videos or reels it takes to finally be like, okay, I've heard 100 people say the same thing by now, so maybe I'll just do it for myself. I think you can save a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy by just taking what you already know what to do and then doing it. And then if you don't know what to do, then there's probably a specific question or a specific answer found on, sure, a podcast or a YouTube video, but you can expedite the process of learning if you attack and go about what you know you need to do first. And then along the way, you're going to have questions, and those questions are going to specify themselves as the journey goes on. And you're able to go online and type whatever you're looking for, and you'll get more specific answers, as opposed to a really broad podcast where you have to listen to somebody's backstory and upbringing and childhood and trauma and education and this and that. By hour 2, you finally get to a bit of information like, oh, I like that, I'll pull something from that. And I remember hearing a lot about, like, even if I pull one thing from this podcast and it was like worth it, it's like, well, okay, if the podcast is an hour and a half, 2 hours long, and you pull one thing from that 2 hours, to me, at least I know with how my schedule's set up, I could probably get more done if I'm doing things to build myself or my business or what have you within that 2 hour time frame. So that's just like my counter argument to how trendy it is nowadays to want to better yourself, which is kind of bad that it sounds like I'm downplaying that, which I'm not necessarily trying to. I just think that one perspective to have when consuming this stuff is that you probably already know the answer, and you don't need a expert in the field to be able to justify what you already know to be correct. And maybe it's appropriate for people like myself or others to be able to stop and think, do you already know this answer? Have I seen this 100 times already? Or am I genuinely unsure of what the answer is? In which case I should be very specific in the way that I go about obtaining this answer, so I can get back to my own work and pursue my own dreams at a much faster pace.
I think that was really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, it almost is like a oof in my chest, because I just think about how much of it that I've done. And I think, like you said, there's this balancing act. I love that you said that maybe I go too far over this direction, and I'm not going to say whether you do or do not. However, I think that the balancing is relevant. And you even said, 100 hours to get the one thing. But what I find to be true for many is expand that out. It's not 100 hours, and it can often be far greater than 100 hours, iterating on these same concepts. And yet still no action taken. So it could really expand out. Maybe it is 100 hours and you pick it up and then you use it. Maybe it is you like literally listen to the same concepts for 30 years and don't ever implement them.
Right. Yeah.
that hits different.
Totally.
And that doesn't settle well.
Right. That's a good point. I think about, well, for example, 2 days ago, I was asked if I had any mentors in business. And my direct answer was, I don't have any specific mentors. My main mentor is doing the exact opposite of what I would once consider to be a business mentor from my past, to do the exact opposite of this individual. And that's like my mentor in business. And with that point, the main thing that I learned with growing my business into what it is now is just simply, I had to create it because when I chose to move to Austin to pursue my bigger goals and my bigger dreams, I knew that this was going to be the one for sure way that I could build and sustain an income, moving to a new area, having a degree in business that I'll never fucking use, and also having no job experience besides being a security manager at Wet n Wild, which is basically like a water park in Arizona, and an admin warehouse worker at Lazy Boy Furniture. So with that all said, I'm limited in what I can create money on, but I know that with this particular coaching thing, if I do this now and I get the ball rolling and I generate momentum, I'm going to be able to do really well because this is what I'm really good at and I'm really passionate about. But also, I need to start now. And because I started as soon as I did, maybe even before I was mentally ready, a lot of these questions come up and a lot of these learning lessons come up, and you have no choice but to face it right then, get over it, get past it, move forward from it, and then move on to the next one. And this entire year and a half process between Matt and I has been nothing but audible, problem, change, boom, 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 and just learn. And if there's a issue right then and there, then like it's a very quick look up the answer, talk to this person for the answer, and move on. And I felt like that's what's allowed my training, or my business to be able to build in a quick manner within a short amount of time, is quite simply because I just chose to just go at it with very little understanding of how to actually build an online business besides what had come to my mind as far as common sense is concerned. But a lot of what I've learned now that I'm actually very honored to be able to pass on to other coaches and other trainers asking me very similar questions that I had. Not a whole lot of extra work on the studying business side of things, not a whole lot of extra work on the consuming coaching content side of things, not a whole lot of extra work on really any of that, to be honest. It's just been a lot of plug and play and learn as I go. And to that point, in anyone's case, if you just take an idea that you have and you go at it right then and there as soon as it becomes an idea, once you start the process, and that's what plays into my favor, once I start the process, I can't really go back and undo it because then I'm a quitter. So sometimes just starting the process and having some pride and not being a quitter is the best thing that you can do for yourself. Just start it.
I love it so much. I just am really grateful that I have you.
Me too, baby.
To be able to like remind me of these things, because new ideas, as much as I wish that we could hear them one time and they could sink in, for me, I need to be reminded. Especially one of the great things you do for me too is just like, you actually have a tremendous amount of value to add in this specific domain. Why don't you just buy in on that and double down on it? And I'm like, oh, okay. Are you sure? When as soon as I get with a client, dude, we're making progress. We're doing things, 100%. So it's so silly. I guess with your ability to just quickly execute, to quickly act, to recognize, gotta take some action here. Is there anything that you can pull that echoes in the back of your mind whenever, like even on a day-to-day basis, that is helpful to you whenever you could want to entertain yourself in other ways and you know that there's work to be done? I don't know. Is there anything going on in there that's like repeated and you hear yourself say it to yourself frequently?
Yeah, and majority of them are negative, but also with that said, negative in a way to where there's a constant reminder that as much as it's okay and cool to celebrate where it's built to now, when I first got into this, I am still nowhere near where I said I wanted it to be or accomplish the things that I said I wanted to do. So, and that's kind of that's kind of like the cool thing of setting high goals is that when you set goals so high, you can achieve a lot of things that the remaining 98, 99% of people don't do, haven't done, can't do, but then continue to
Won't do.
won't do and still continue to move past that because where I'm at now, being able to sustain myself and Matt, who works right underneath me, most coaches have a hard time getting it to where this can become their full-time income because it's a hard industry. Like it's not, well, A, it's oversaturated, and B, it's a hard industry, and C, even here, out here in Austin, it's very oversaturated. So it's just hard to find ways and learn that process in a short amount of time to be able to go from cool little side hustle to like, no, this is like a full blown career. You have people working for you. You have people that you're looking to hire at some point, that type of thing. And so to that point, I'm, with that said, still nowhere near where I want to be with it. And when I think about the times where I could go home and vacation, or I could go do other things that seem more appealing, or let my mind wander off to things that may serve me in that moment in regards to like happiness or fulfilling a void or what have you, I personally just cannot allow myself to feel like I'm doing something when I know that I'm nowhere near where I need to be. Because if we're talking about pro wrestling, if we're talking about being a superhero to millions of kids, if we're talking about how much I want to scale my business, like I'm not even on level 1 of that process yet. But yet I've been here for almost 2 years building to even buy the controller to allow me to even play the game to get to level 1. And that's where a lot of the lessons that I had learned early on from my dad about how hard he had to work to earn his 6 degrees, his doctorate, his master's, his you name it, to then parlay that into what I did for myself in high school with training 2 or 3 times a day, going to school, not partying, not drinking, not having girlfriends, all these different things that I sacrificed at the time. It's this way of life that I've really been living since high school, basically. And now parlaying that into business and acting endeavors and lifting and other facets. It's kind of the same thing just all over again. When I was in high school, I wasn't a state champion yet. So why would I go out to the lake with my friends when I know that I need to train or I need to study or I need to rest because I want this one goal? Why would I stop? But that doesn't make any sense to me. And it sounds very extreme and it sounds almost crazy. And again, to be motivated by telling yourself you're nothing. You're nothing compared to what you want to be. You're nowhere close to where you want to be. It can be negative. It can be very stressful. It can take time, such as hanging out with like Claire and her family on a weekend trip to Houston, and make it somewhat an anxious process because I'm sitting there. I know I'm supposed to be relaxing and enjoying the moment and being in the moment, but also I'm like, okay, when I get back, I'm going to be doing this and this and this. I need to make sure when I'm good, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so a very long-winded answer to your question is just, it's a constant understanding, a reminder that I'm nowhere near what I want to be, and I'm literally nothing, like not even worth a dime in comparison to what I'm shooting for. So with that said, it allows you to accomplish a lot along the way, learn a lot along the way, teach a lot of people along the way, but it's my preferred method currently as to what allows me to have this seemingly never-ending gas tank when it comes to attacking these various things. But also due in large part and credit to having a partner like Claire, where I have a ridiculous amount of support. I have a ridiculous amount of belief in me. I have the person that reminds me to slow down. I have the person that understands my goals and understands why certain things that make me tick one way can make me tick in a not so good way. But she accepts all of it, and it allows me just to continue to pursue these things without any regret or without any doubt, because I have an extremely supportive partner also pursuing very similar things, but one that believes in me and further justifies that I'm on the right path and chasing what I want to accomplish.
That was cute. Before you threw that last little sweet plug in there, I definitely, and thank you. That, like, my thoughts before all of that was just simply yes, like the fact that, yes, we did go to Houston and that you are sitting there thinking, like, if I chose to be attracted to someone who strives for greatness, is greatness currently, and is striving for so much more, then the idea that they wouldn't also then be struggling to settle down into any sort of relaxation or like, those are just like, they make sense, you know? And so then how can I create little blips of peace for you in all of that chaos, but not so much so that I expect you to step away. Like I just, while we went, you managed to weave in multiple work opportunities. Well, that makes sense because you're you, and I don't expect anything and I'm good with it. I also think that you said, it can seem crazy or it can seem intense or whatever the words that you said were. And it's like, from my perspective, I also struggle to believe that deep down anyone doesn't actually wish for greatness in their own right, in whatever way it is for them. So yours looks like this via pro wrestling journey, etc. But like, who doesn't want to achieve greatly in life? I just like don't believe that there are people who don't want that. Now, the belief, the buy-in, the belief in the worthiness of themselves to be able to achieve, or any of those sorts of, like, that's a different story. But I haven't really yet met anyone and had a conversation with them who wouldn't like to do more, And so then that for me is a great reminder that, like, so if I can identify that when it comes to business for myself, that there's this lack of buy-in deeply seated in there, that I actually like have the capacity to do certain things. I've got to get to work on that, and that's deep in there. And so it's very helpful to hear you affirm for me, but I need to affirm for myself. I need to get really clear on what those things are that I seem to not be fully bought into, and then I need to like get after it. So that's like the affirmations and visualization stuff that I've been doing recently is just, I'm enjoying it. I'm curious to see where it will take me. And it's like, there's no way it's wasted effort, because there's some rewiring that needs to take place in a couple of ideas in my mind, because I think we've talked about this. I practice gratitude and I've done it for years and I love it. And we practice it together most days now. And so I enjoy practicing gratitude so much that like I can feel grateful for a lot of things. And I can then like feel satisfied almost, or like, well, I'm getting by and I have people and I have, enough, like I'm, and so it's this balancing act even there right now for me of like, yes, be grateful. And also you are capable of so much more, and you need to do the work, and you need to believe that you deserve those things. And so it's been a fun journey that you have really been instrumental for me. When I see you operate the way you do, you somewhere in there, like you believe, right? And then I'm like, where am I lacking belief? Where do I need to grow that? And if I can pinpoint the certain areas, which I've got a couple very clearly pinpointed for me personally, that I'm now just like stating really clear affirmations with timelines and details associated to them. Because yet again, like I got to be thinking it. I got to be visualizing it. We got to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I like what you said, and probably most people, if not everybody, would want to achieve some sort of greatness, be greatness. But I think that percentage changes if that uncertainty of if that actually happens comes into play. So I think if you were to ask, everybody if they would want, to be great or whatever, you probably get a large number of people. But I also think that the thought of chasing greatness or submitting a legacy or having your legacy kind of echo in eternity, for that matter, like what I want for myself, there's a lot of fear that goes into it, not just for others, but for myself too. Because if I vocalize what I want to do and all of a sudden I decide I quit this journey or I fail or whatever the case may be that prevents me from continuing on this path that I've put so much hype behind and I spoke so much of, then there's like that fear of embarrassment, of judgment, of failure, of all these different things. So when it comes to greatness, I think a lot of people want to feel what it's like to be that, but also understanding that there's a huge level of risk. There's a huge level of uncertainty. You have to bet on yourself. And it comes to a point to where for myself, I'm like, if I fail at everything I've done, or if I don't do everything that I've said I'm going to do, I'm going to look like the biggest fucking jackass. I'm gonna prove all my haters right. I'm gonna prove the people said I said I should have got a real job right. I'm gonna all these various things. But at a certain point, I just became so ignorant and just so arrogant to the fact that I'm going to just continue to say what I plan to do, regardless of whatever others think, or even in respect to the chance that I could not accomplish these things. God could have a completely different plan for me, but at the same time, I know what I want and I know what I'm chasing. And so until that day we're told otherwise or shown otherwise, then I have nothing to go off of but the own belief in myself that I will accomplish these things. And if you can come to that conclusion in your head, whatever it takes, and it might take a really long time, then you too can also pursue greatness in your own definition of, in your own respect of, whatever that means to you. But it doesn't just happen overnight, because for me, I've always wanted to do things like what I'm doing right now, but it was all just kind of like a fantasy. And I knew at a certain point I was going to have to go to college and pick the career that I wanted to. But then I hit a certain point where I'm like, whoa, I'm here now and I don't want to do any of this. I hate this. I can't stand being in this place. And then I realized, like, okay, well, you can either conform or you can go after what you really want. And what you really want is this. And in order to get there, you're not just going to secretly get there. You're not just going to be able to just poof yourself there. You're going to have to scream that into existence and make sure that everybody and their mother knows exactly what your purpose is and what you're doing. Otherwise, you can kiss the chances of that goodbye, if there are any.
And all of the hard work. I think that, and thank you, because the way that you think is unique, always. I love it. So I think too, oh shoot, where was I going with this?
I think you said hard work.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
I was going to say, like, to that, like, of course, hard work has to be the foundation of that. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people that work really hard and work really, really hard, but pull off just a little bit between that line of being a really hard worker and then putting all bets on the line and taking that next step to whatever that is for that given individual. Because, and sometimes I could be wrong in this scenario, but there's a lot of hardworking people out there, and hard work alone, I've learned, especially in my particular goal path, is not the only thing that's going to get you to where you want to go. Yeah. You have to have everything. And I don't have everything, but I'm working to obtain that. Mm-hmm. But also, I knew that I could work hard at whatever I needed to do or whatever, because I've been doing that for a long time. But anything that's ever stopped me short of my goals was nothing more than belief in myself, confidence in being able to do what I want to do or say what I want to do. I could be and I am the hardest worker. I believe that 100%. You will not outwork me. There's nobody in my space that will outwork me. But at the same time, what has held me back historically is a deep down belief in myself in regards to me winning state as a high school wrestler, in regards to winning particular jiu-jitsu matches, in regards to just doing other things in life. There's always been that little sliver of doubt that's always held me down, despite how hard I worked. I knew no one worked harder than me in these things that I did. Nobody was working out 4 times a day while doing a bodybuilding prep leading us to his senior year, just to let a little bit of doubt and a concussion prevent me from being able to do what I wanted to do for 4 years of high school wrestling. But I look back at times like that now and I think about what I could accomplish if I didn't let that sliver of doubt always creep in at the worst possible time. You work so hard, you do all the right things, you sacrifice more than anybody, you put in more hours than anybody, and it can all be fucking wasted if you just have doubt enter at the wrong time. Deal with doubt before that. Deal with doubt before the moment comes to play. Then when the moment comes into play, be ignorant, be arrogant. Know that you deserve to be there and know that it's your opportunity to seize.
How do you do that today?
I think I go into particular things knowing that this is my element. This is my moment. I deserve the spotlight, and this is what I'm going to be doing with this X amount of time in the spotlight. That's it. And then as soon as I'm out, I don't need to be anywhere near the spotlight at all whatsoever. You know that more about me more than anybody. But in those moments where it's Jimmy's time to shine, it's Jimmy's time to talk, it's Jimmy's time to own the scene, then that switch turns on for me, and I'm in my element, and I'm able to much better nowadays take full advantage of opportunities like that.
Intensity. I love it. No, that's great. That was like fun to watch you riff on, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. So I wanted to talk, let's go ahead and do that. A little bit more about, you're taking more of your time back right now. So like you have been burning the candle at both ends. You've been expending a ton of energy, and I mean, just my gosh, the hours you've been working. So right now, as you are gaining back capacity physically, you're now having to make adjustments to accommodate that in order to get back to it in pursuit of those goals.
Yeah.
So what are some of the ways that you are going about buying back your time?
Yeah. So in my particular pursuit, where ultimately I just want to be able to give and provide to others, very specifically kids, it's a very selfless goal up front, sure. But also, in order to even get to a point to where that's even realistically possible for one kid, let alone a million, you have to be selfish, number one, and understand how to continue to be more and more and more selfish, but have a dial on it to where you actually have control over it. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, that have no control over selfishness or ego or what have you. It's just this uncontrollable thing, like the machine's broken, it's just going everywhere. But I try my best to work on, imperfectly, tuning the dial up on selfishness or tuning the dial up on ego, tuning it up on pride, and then tuning it down when appropriate. And so to address your question, quite literally, during the time when I was off from the injury, I worked really, really hard to build my business, both online and in person. In person, so grateful for all the clients that have supported me through this hard time, and then also supported the growth of my business. And, because of that, it generated the type of problems that you want to have in business, essentially not having enough time because so many people want to support you or want to learn from you or want to be coached from you. So then you have to kind of make a audible and turn left when you're about to turn right, because, you enter coaching, obviously, to serve others. Obviously, it's a career, so you want to build it yourself to make money and sustain. But ultimately, you chose coaching over the desk job that pays a little bit more because you enjoy helping others more than you enjoy just money alone. And so for myself, going through that, building the in-person clientele that I did and online, like I said, each individual takes time, especially if you truly care about building up their progress. And that time, whether it's an hour or 75 minutes or whatever the case may be, that's an hour or 75 minutes that I cannot put selfishly into myself, doing things that I know that I would make good use of the time of to help me get closer or pursue or learn new skills or develop new abilities to achieve what I really, really want to do. I really, really want to be on the big screen and be a superhero to millions of kids. But I know if I'm spending anywhere from 5 to 8 hours a day training in-person clients and having to maneuver around the ridiculously trafficked city of Austin, that my time where I know I need to be training like I used to 2 to 3 times a day is now limited to one 90-minute time window with a lower ability to make sure that my nutrition is on point, a lower ability to make sure that my rest is on point. And so now I'm at the transition period to where I'm working really hard to scale my online business to where I can do a little bit less in person and be able to buy back some of my time so that I can put that time, invest it back into myself for a greater return, hopefully somewhere in the near future.
Yeah, it's just I think that the thing, we come back to the hard work thing. And I remember coming into the industry of coaching with such wildly unrealistic expectations. I've talked about this before, but for me, I thought, because I came from an industry where I just did not have to work as hard for as much income outright. And so I still cared tremendously about what I did and who I worked with. And that was obvious throughout all of that. But it required a lot less of my energy for more money. It was a different industry. And so then coming into this, I just was all off base. But I think what's important there is that you like went heavy into, like, you built up such high demand for your time that now you have the option to scale back. And I think that both pieces of that storyline are so relevant. If you want it to truly be successful, you're going to have to do a lot more than you think that you need to, more than you know, whatever. Like, do you want to make it work or not? And then at some point now it's justifiable to say time is more valuable. You know, I've got to pivot this thing. And so it's so cool to watch you then pivot with these clients that you have relationships with, that you care so much about their progress, you still want to see them win and be a part of it, and having to hybridize certain things and do what you've got to do to get it in place so that that way they are still supported as best as you possibly can and give you that time back. I think it's been really cool to watch, and I think you're doing a really good job of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And man, talking about the broken machine, that was, I mean, I haven't heard that analogized. Is that a word?
Oh, the broken machine. I don't know.
Analogy. No, it's so good talking about like ego and
Yeah.
selfishness, and sometimes it's just like a broken machine, and it's just I was like, wow, yeah, me prior to sobriety, and even still got to really, if there's anything that my mentor in that journey keeps an eye on with me, she's like, sweetie, do you think you don't have an ego? Do you think you're not selfish? You know, so like playing with those dials. Anyway, that was good. Okay. Did you want to say something else? Okay. I'm going to pull something up real quick that I wanted to read off and then riff on with you. So give me just a moment.
Okay.
Silence on a podcast. But it's not really silence.
She won't edit this part out.
Because I'm whispering at you. No, I won't edit this part out. I kind of like it. Okay. So my friend, Dr. Justin Farnsworth, he's a doctor of physical therapy. He taught the pain-free performance specialist certification the first time I took it. I've taken it a couple of times now, thankfully. It's a great course. Anyway, he made a post on social media. I read it to you last night, so you already know what's coming. But I loved it. And so he says, you know what's worth more than a doctoral degree? This is a gentleman with a doctoral degree saying this. Understanding how to use exercise as medicine. And he went on to say, we simply make things too fancy and difficult in order to justify having an advanced degree, master's for some, doctoral for most. It is truly amazing to me how many people who hurt themselves just need better programming, not getting their backs cracked, a glute massage, or an ultrasound gel, and a 3x10 corrective exercises that don't correct anything. Literally, just better exercise choices and coaching on how to move better with progressive load over time can fix a lot of issues. That was pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, it's good.
It's good. Yeah, I don't know. You have certainly been instrumental in my journey of like really understanding how to just fine tune the heck out of each individual movement. And that's been so cool. And then to talk about the exercise selection and how relevant it is. And of course, that was something that even in the pain-free performance, we talked a lot about programming and making it most supportive to a very broad base. And then of course, fine tuning for individuals. But anyway, yeah, do you have any thoughts on that concept?
I think the barrier of entry into fitness as a coach or a trainer or whatever is very low. And so a lot of times when you think you have to go to college or you have to get a particular certification, you probably like really don't have to unless like legally authorized to otherwise. But the thing is that like with coaching in today's world, information like that is like, one, people post stuff like that all the time, and two, it's really easily accessible. If you were to just be like, instead of going to college for 4 years, maybe I should just like watch a YouTube video every day for an extended period of time, and I'd probably be able to pick up about the same amount with much less expenses, to be quite honest with you. Um, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong about what he said at all. I mean, I agree. It's just also, yeah, I I don't have much more to add to that. I agree. I just think that overall, like the barrier of entering the fitness industry is very low, and also like with that said, a lot of the schooling that is required to get certain letters behind your name, in my opinion, is just not worth it. And there's hundreds of coaches, if not more, besides myself, that have proven that you can do basically the same thing, nearly, probably make more money doing it, with much less time put in and spent on school and stuff like that. So it's a nice thing to kind of have the letters for sure, and it allows you to do some things that people that don't can't. But also at the same time, I think that uh, even if you're not a coach or anything like that, there's a lot of information that you can find with very little effort that would basically summarize that post, but for yourself, and you'd be able to, yeah, figure that out for your own on your own as well.
Yep, exactly. And that's what, like, my thought there, of course, is yes, sure, for coaches, but genuinely just for anyone who wants to optimize their experience in their body, their life, using exercise as medicine for themselves. Obviously, if they want to be able to practice that with others via coaching or whatever it is, then yes, sure, you're going to need to get real curious. But like, if it's your life and your body, don't you want to be curious too? Because don't you want to enjoy that experience and learn what you need to do for yourself? And so there is the beautiful part of all of these different online coaches and whatever, coaches in person and that do know what they're doing, that have gotten a ton of people great results, and their quality of lives have gotten so much better that it can make such a difference. I know I've got a couple of loved ones that it's just been so cool to watch. Well, I've got a few loved ones actually that have just really turned around their quality of life in such meaningful ways. And I think about how for them, literally all it's really taken to make some huge strides with some really big things that were causing them a lot of issues, whether it was neuropathy that kept them up at night, or whether it was just, regularly throwing their back out, being out for an exorbitant period of time, and all of the, and then the fatigue. I mean, we could just go down the list, and it's a matter of like, now implemented some really important exercises to work muscle groups that they just simply needed to grow and so on. And like, they don't have those issues anymore. How cool is that? I thought that was a really cool way to word that, what he said. So anyway, okay. What are you excited about?
I'm excited what I can do with more time dedicated to myself.
Yep. Yeah, I think we had a lot of fun getting to talk about all of that stuff on those drives back and forth this weekend. That was really fun to hear your excitement for all that you are about to, you are actively getting after it with. It's cool to hear the excitement. I think you got a lot coming up.
Hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. That's all I have.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay. You know the drill. I need 3 gratitudes from you, sir.
Okay. Let's see.
They have to be meaningful for Jimmy Haas.
Yeah.
Like deeply meaningful. Not just like sort of fluff.
Yeah. Grateful. Go ahead.
Nope.
I'm grateful for another weekend that we shared where I feel like we hit another level of partnership and trust and compatibility and all these different things that further justify why I am with you and forever. On top of that, I'm grateful. See, the problem is when I go through these, depending upon the day or whatever stresses that are going on or whatever I'm working on, I could pitch out certain things, but then my brain automatically goes like, why are you grateful for that? You haven't done shit with that yet. Why are you grateful for this? You haven't done anything with that yet. Why are you grateful for this? You haven't whatever. And it's just, yeah. So that's kind of like that's like kind of a byproduct of the mindset that we talked about earlier, where it's like, I can't sit here and be overly grateful for like one thing that's like generally pretty good, because I know it's like so small and like what I actually want for myself that it's hard for me for sure. And today's been a normally stressful day, so I don't have these popping out as quickly as the other guests do.
No, that's okay. I think it makes you human. And not a lot of things make you human.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be excited about having more time for myself, and I'm grateful that some of the fears that I had about if I'd ever be able to return to the way that I was prior to the injury and prior to the mold, some of those fears and concerns are starting to disappear a little bit. Yeah. So not completely, but a lot of them have to a large degree. So yeah, I guess those three things. And then, oh yeah, I guess I already mentioned you in the first one. So go ahead.
Did you want to do it again?
No. I already mentioned you in the first one.
All right. My 3 gratitudes today. I'm going to go with I'm grateful for, we did just go to Houston over the weekend and visit my aunt and uncle. And so I just think how instrumental they've been over these past few years of my life as I've started to seek support from them in regards to certain areas of my life that they have just simply like I'm impressed by what they've accomplished. And so the fact that I have them, that I can go and ask them for advice and so on, has been really helpful. So then to have them nearby and be able to go see them and spend quality time with them, I'm really grateful for that. I am grateful for my group that meets on Mondays. They're in my gratitudes every Monday. And today there were 8 of us. And I just love it. We do the once weekly group coaching call on Mondays at noon Central Time. And we always just come together and spend 30 minutes figuring out what's our game plan for the week, getting our mindsets right, you name it. And I love seeing their faces. I love hearing what's going on with them. I love them becoming friends and supporting one another from different places in the world. They're a really cool part of my life. And I know that they know that, but that's my gratitude today. And then my third and final gratitude is Jimmy House.
Finally.
I made it. Yeah, no, exactly what you said. I'm going to echo back at you. Just that simply as time continues to pass, I just enjoy. I've felt safe pretty much from the jump, which is really important. I've felt that I can trust you, which is really important. I've felt inspired by you. I've admired you. Like these are things that have been going on, but I feel continuously more supported by you as time passes. And I think that's partially just because you're helping me to see that I do a terrible job of asking for support and even receiving support. And so that's something that we are working on. And that's like something I'm really grateful for is as time passes, you help me let that happen. And it's a positive experience all around. So I'm grateful for you.
Thanks, baby.
And I'm grateful for you coming on to the podcast today. That's a wrap. Let's see here. From there, I'm going to touch on it one more time. Coaching will be in the description below. And we both offer it. I know he's pointing at me because it's my podcast and he wants you to come to me because whatever. Thankfully, it's like a twofer. That you get like both of us no matter what. But anyway, yeah, those will be down in the description below. There are a lot of different offerings, honestly, for both of us as far as level of involvement, level of cost, and so on. So you can just apply with either one of us, and we'll get with you and figure out whatever works best for you based on your circumstances and your needs. And then other than that, we just hope that you choose to have a beautiful day.
Shout out to Aunt Shauna and Uncle Keith for hospitality over the weekend.